The longest day. A Pantheress regret the drive was 4.5 hours of humming tires and pre-race jitters. They had left at 6:30 a.m., chasing a horizon that promised a ticket to the state championships. This was the most stacked roster the Panthers had ever fielded. Showtime on the hurdles, Rocket in the 200 meters, Ray pulling double duty in the high jump and 100 meters, and Peanut dominating the pits, with speedsters like Sean, Hayner, and Finch rounding out the relays. They didn't just feel like contenders, they felt like a force of nature. Then the sky turned black. A heavy country thunderstorm slammed into the region just as they arrived. By the time the clouds parted, the meet was under a 90-minute delay. The schedule was shot, Tia was thick and humid, and the energy that had been buzzing on the bus began to sour into restless anxiety. At the high jump pit, Ray was already losing the battle before he even took his sweats off. He was staring at Akita, literal giant, nearly 7 feet tall, who was clearing heights in warm-ups that Ray usually struggled to hit on his best day. "I'm scratching," Ray muttered, his eyes fixed on the giant. "I need to focus on the 100. "Don't you dare," the coach barked. "Stay in it, Ray," Ray tried. He cleared his opening heights, but his heart wasn't in the pit. When the rain returned for another 20 minutes, soaking the apron and slicking the equipment, the universe felt like it was throwing punches. By the time he checked in for the 100 meters, he found out he had to run 3 separate heats just to qualify. Frustrated after a mediocre third-place finish in his first heat, Ray made a choice he'd regret for years. He walked back to the high jump and took himself out of the competition. "You're just afraid of that kid," the coach said, his voice cold with disappointment. "I'm not gonna lie," Ray whispered, hanging his head. "It's part of it." The irony tasted like ash. As Ray watched from the sidelines, the giant finally stepped up to the bar at 6 feet. But the ground was slick, and the kid's timing was destroyed by his earlier hurdles race against Showtime. The giant clipped the bar on the first try. He landed off-center on the second. On the third, he hit the bar with a cry of frustration and slammed it to the ground. He was out. Disqualified. Ray's stomach did a slow roll. If he had stayed in, he would have placed no worse than third. He would have punched his ticket to state in high jump. But he had already walked away. The day dragged on. Rocket was a machine, winning heat after heat. Peanut secured his spot in the triple jump with a leap that seemed to defy gravity. Even Ray managed to claw his way into the 100-meter state finals by taking third in his last heat. When the 4x100 team took second in the finals, the Panther Brotherhood felt like it was back. But then came the 4x4. It was nearly 11 p.m. by the time the final event was called. The stadium lights flickered against the dark woods surrounding the track. They were exhausted, drained by the 12-hour ordeal. "Let's just get home," the whisper started. Rocket, Ray, Peanuts, and Showtime already had their tickets punched for individual events. They didn't want to run a grueling 400 meters just to get home at 3 a.m. They pulled Sean aside. "Just false start," they told him. "Get us DQ'd so we can leave." Sean walked to the blocks. Bang! The gun fired twice. Start. The Panthers started packing their bags, ready to bolt for the bus. But when they looked back, Sean was still there. It wasn't him. Another runner had jumped. They reset. Bang. Another false start. Again, it wasn't Sean. "If he goes, we have to go," Ray muttered, his conscience fighting his exhaustion. The third gun fired. They were off. Sean burst out of the blocks, the team screaming at him from the sidelines. "Drop the baton. Take down." In full stride, Sean tossed the baton toward the turf. But in a freak moment of physics, the baton hit the ground and bounced straight back up into his hand. Taney, he caught it instinctively. The universe was demanding they finish. Finally, at the 100-meter mark, Sean simply stopped and walked off the track. The coach threw his clipboard, the plastic shattering against the pavement. The ride home was silent. They had their qualifiers, but they had left their integrity on a wet track in the middle of nowhere. At state, the what-ifs became reality. Rocket took gold in the 200 meters, a shining moment for the school. But Ray got dusted in the 100 meters, finishing far back from the leaders. The 4x100 relay team, plagued by the bad energy of that night at regionals, fumbled their handoffs and finished a disappointing 7th. To this day, when the former Panthers gather, they don't talk about the medals they won. They talk about the 4x4 they didn't run. They talk about the high jump bar Ray never leaped. They realized too late that you do one just run for the medal you run, so you never have to wonder.